قافلے در قافلے عشاق کے آئے ہیں مہمان مسیح پاک کے.
Jalsa Salana, UK. Today, a convention held over 3 days, attended by thousands of Ahmadi Muslims who flocked to the English countryside to revitalize their spirituality, bonds of brotherhood, and relationship with the Khalifa of the time for yet another year. But this blessed convention was not always this way. In fact, the Jalsa Salana in the UK had very humble beginnings.
The Jalsa in the UK actually started, I believe, in the late 1940s. 1949 was the first Jalsa, and that was held at the Fazl Mosque, and then there was another Jalsa that took place in 1950. But after that there was a big gap because we don't have any records of Jalsas taking place. Then in the 1960s is where our record actually starts again.
So the dates were fixed for the last weekend of August 1964. The Jalsa was held at the grounds of the London Mosque. In those days, where there is the Mahmood Hall, this was open space. So in this area, we set up not tents, but just a sort of marquees, roofless marquees. And that was the first Jalsa.
On the 30th of April 1984, Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih IV, Rahmatullah alayh, migrated from Pakistan to the UK. After his migration, an historic Jalsa Salana took place. For the first time ever, a Khalifa residing in the UK would bless this convention with his presence.
By that time, the UK Jamaat had already planned its Jalsa, because it was a normal routine that in the month of July we hold the Jalsa. So the program was made, it was all approved and everything was settled. Huzur came. So after 1 month, then I proposed to Huzur that Huzur, this is the program. So what is the instruction about that? So Huzur said that the program that has been made, that is okay. Just change one thing, that the last concluding address I will be delivering.
The first 2 sessions were held in Mahmood Hall, and then the final session took place in Tolworth Recreation Centre.
It was all packed. Hall was packed. After saying the concluding prayer, then Huzur went to the ladies' side, and then he came back to the London Mosque. So that was the Jalsa which took place for the first time in 84 when Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih Rabi Rahimahullah Ta'ala was present there.
With the arrival of Huzur in London, the UK Jamaat was growing, and it was not long until a dedicated site was sought for the holding of the annual convention.
When Huzur arrived, he obviously realized that the Jamaat would require somewhere, and he instructed the Jamaat to find something suitable. And obviously various feelers were put out.
So I remember regarding the purchase of this Islamabad, it was also very interesting. It was sold in an auction, we came to know, and there were some people who were looking after this purchasing plan, and Huzur gave them the idea that 425,000 should be the maximum price of this land according to every judgment. He actually went there first few days before the auction. He physically, personally went there, and I remember the place where he led the Asr prayer. So next day after the Fajr, he told us that yes, go ahead with the bidding. And the 3 members team, they went there, and the auction went up to exactly 425, and that was given by us. And they were thinking that if it comes with that price, then we are going to go get it. But it so happened that somebody gave the bidding at 426,000. So our members, they thought that, well, it's going beyond us. We can't go. But then they decided within themselves that, well, even if it's a matter of couple of 2,000 pounds or so, then we will pay, and anyway, because it's a good proposal, we want to have it. So they offered 427,000, and luckily they got it. So it was just as accurate, as it could be possible in such a big purchase. He was very happy that alhamdulillah this property has been purchased. And the same day at 5 o'clock news, it was on the television that a Muslim organization has purchased the Sheep Hatch School, a property in £500,000.
The first Jalsa Salana held in Islamabad was in 1985. The event was a success, but not without a few learning curves for the UK Jamaat. Some which the Jalsa goers of today would be all too familiar with, namely the Great British Weather.
In Islamabad, there is an open area which was quite good to accommodate the two big marquees. We acquired very big marquees, but still I could say that much smaller marquees as we use now. But it was a different shape because of the financial constraints. We only rented those marquees with the pole in between, in the middle. And there were a complete line of poles throughout the marquee. But there was no proper flooring at that time. Just the mat or the carpet was there. But if it rained, then it was very bad condition inside, mud and all that.
And because it rained very heavily, the water managed to get in from the sides into the Jalsa. And everyone sitting on the carpets, had their clothes wet. And then also because we were parking cars on the grounds within Islamabad, because of the heavy rain, it became very wet and muddy. And it became impossible for the cars to move there. And our young Khuddam at that stage actually used to pick up the cars literally and take them out. And they were completely covered in mud.
And I remember that Huzur himself also came out of his residence when he came to know that this situation is there, and just wanted to encourage everybody and saying farewell when the people were going on the last day.
Islamabad would play host to the UK Jalsa Salanas for the next 19 years. Over this period, the Jalsa saw a huge change in its attendees. This was no longer just a UK Jalsa. Delegations would attend from all over the world, and Islamabad was now at full capacity.
We had come to a point where the largest marquees possible that could be erected in Islamabad were being erected, and we had absolutely no room for expansion. We had at that stage attendances about 11,000, maybe 12,000, and that was the maximum, and it was becoming very, very tight. So we started looking. We were actively looking for an alternative site, but in the interim period we had to do something. Now, we started negotiating with the MOD, Ministry of Defence. They had a site in Rushmore. And this is an unfortunate incident happened at that time. That was the London bombings took place. And of course, there's a huge cry against the Muslims in the press. And this became a very difficult point. But it is such Allah's blessing that, the Ministry of Defence then actually considered our case, and our case went right to the top, to the ministers responsible for defence. And he sanctioned that, yes, Ahmadis are fine and they should be given this. Because Rushmore was right in the middle of the army site. All around us were army installations, barracks, everything. So it was a very sensitive site for them.
Rushmore was merely a stepping stone for the Jamaat, and it wasn't long before a permanent site for the future of the UK Jalsa Salanas was identified.
Diqat al-Mahdi was quite an interesting acquisition. What happened was that a site became available, and Nasir Khan Sahib mentioned to me that there was this site. We'd been looking for quite a while. We'd looked at airports, and we had looked at sites all around the country to find. But when Allah wants to do something, He brings it at a very convenient location, because this was a site which was very close to Islamabad and in the right location that we were looking. It was surrounded all around with trees, and it was 208 acres with two very substantial houses built on site, a lot of large warehouses. And the price was very reasonable at 2.2 million, was very, very reasonable. Huzur very kindly came with us to look at the site, and then Huzur gave us the permission to acquire it.
And Huzur gave it a very beautiful name of Diqat al-Mahdi. Everybody was so full of joy when Huzur mentioned for the first time in his Friday sermon that this new place that we have acquired, I have named it Hadiqatul Mahdi.
We thought that we'd wait a couple of years, and we thought that we'd continue to hold jalsas at Rushmore for a couple of years, because we'd set up there, we understood the site, But Hazur said, no, we have now got our own place, and we should try and organize the next jalsa there. I think Rush was a preparation for this acquisition, because all the things that we learned, electricity, we started using generators, water, we used storage tanks for water, sewage, we were able to get companies to come and take away the waste. And all of these things we learned while we did Rushmore. And those things were transferable skills that were transferred to Hadiqatul Mahdi immediately.
From humble beginnings at the Fazl Mosque in London to Islamabad in the quaint village of Tilford in Surrey. And today, it is the magnificent fields of Hadiqatul Mahdi that host this annual convention. A history of over 70 years, this convention will continue for many more years to come.
ایک شمع روح ہے ان کے درمیان قافلے در قافلے عشاق کے آئے ہیں مہمان مسیح پاک کے